In a land where the earth itself refuses to sleep, where tremors are not occasional events but part of daily life, more than 1,500 earthquakes strike each year, and yet Japan stands, not just stands, but thrives. In a place where nature constantly tests the limits of human resilience, the people have not only survived, they have turned fragility into beauty, vulnerability into strength, and impermanence into art. This is Japan, a nation where the fury of nature meets the unshakable endurance of human spirit. You walk its streets and feel something different. It's not loud, it doesn't shout, it whispers. A bow, a gesture, a moment of stillness. Every motion is purposeful, every silence full of meaning. In a world rushing to speak, Japan chooses to listen. There's power in that silence. There's dignity in humility. A simple bowl of ramen is not just food. It's a shared gratitude between chef and guest. It's reverence for the ingredients, the effort, the soul poured into every step of its creation. In the heart of the city, bullet trains soar past centuries-old shrines. You can sit in a temple garden and hear your breath between bamboo rustlings, then minutes later, find yourself surrounded by neon and robots. Japan is the contradiction that makes perfect sense, a place where ancient customs dance in rhythm with the future. Where progress is not rebellion against tradition, but a respectful continuation of it. Technology is everywhere, but so is etiquette. Innovation lives side by side with honor. Before you even step deeper into this culture, you must understand, Japan isn't just a destination, it's a revelation. It's a mirror that forces you to pause, to reflect, and to reconsider what it means to live with purpose. History here isn't locked away in museums. It lives in every alley, every shrine, every act of discipline passed from one generation to the next. Yes, it's true, there are stories strange to our eyes, legends painted with humor and mystery, battles reimagined with absurd comedy, a fart through a wall or duels of wind instead of swords. It might seem silly. But look closer, these are not just jokes, they are reflections of a society unafraid to laugh at power, to twist the expected, to weave lessons inside satire. And then there's the samurai, not only warriors, but students of spirit and brotherhood. Men who trained in the art of war, yet also practiced emotional loyalty, compassion, and a rare form of connection we often misunderstand in today's lens. These were layered souls, brave, disciplined, romantic in ways both familiar and foreign. The monks, too, were not merely spiritual leaders. They were warriors, armed not only with prayer but with blades, fighting not just enemies, but ideas, territories, and even their own bodies. Imagine a man who begins a process of self-mummification, slowly letting go of worldly needs over years, meditating into eternity until his body becomes a relic and his sacrifice a lesson. To us, it seems unfathomable. But to them it was enlightenment, proof that belief taken to its edge can transcend flesh, and what of the land itself? The ground beneath their feet continues to shake, yet they build, not in fear but in harmony. Take Mount Fuji, for example. Its beauty is undeniable, its shape almost perfect, painted in poetry and etched into souls across centuries. But it is no sleeping friend, it is a volcano, alive, dangerous, and yet loved, climbed, worshipped, even when women were once forbidden from its summit out of fear that their presence might anger the spirits. Belief remained. Eventually that barrier fell, and as people now climb, gasping above the clouds, it becomes more than just a hike. It becomes a metaphor for endurance, for equality, for that relentless human urge to touch the divine. Mount Fuji is more than rock and snow. It is a symbol of reverence, reflection, and rising above. It reminds us that beauty can be born from fire, that peace can stand atop chaos, Then there's the Arashiyama bamboo forest. Imagine walking through a green cathedral built not by man, but by time. Bamboo stalks rise like soldiers, swaying with a quiet pride. The world falls silent there not because there is nothing, but because there is everything. Even the air seems to carry history. You don't just walk through it, you feel it. The strength, the resilience, the flexibility. Just like the people, you see, the story of Japan isn't just in its mountains, its monks, or its myths. It's in its mindset. It's in how they face every hardship with grace, how they meet every challenge with discipline, how they adapt to a world in flux without ever forgetting who they are. It is a nation built on balance, between tradition and progress, between stillness and motion, between strength and softness. Mount Myoko, once a furious volcano, now rests as a symbol of both destruction and beauty. Steam still rises from its cracks, whispering secrets of a fiery past. At its feet, hot springs bubble, offering comfort to weary travelers. Skiers glide down its slopes, while elders soak in its warmth. Even the scars of the earth have been turned into places of healing. That is what makes Japan extraordinary. It does not hide its pain, it transforms it. From bullet trains to bamboo groves, from silent rituals to spirited festivals, Japan teaches us something vital. That resilience is not loud. That strength is not harsh. That the greatest power lies in those who do not need to prove it. So what will you take from this journey? Will you see beauty even in the broken? Will you walk with more intention, speak with more care, listen with more depth? Will you honor your past without becoming trapped in it? Because Japan isn't just a story, it's a philosophy. A living, breathing example of what happens when a people choose harmony over chaos, discipline over excuses, and grace over fear. They say the storm always passes, but in Japan they have learned to dance in its rain. Let that be your lesson, your fuel, your fire. Let the land of rising sun light something within you, and when you face your own earthquakes, be they literal or emotional, remember, you too can stand tall. You too can rise again, and you too can become unshakable. Imagine a land where the earth itself never truly rests, a place shaken by more than 500 earthquakes every year, where the ground trembles, yet the spirit never falters. This is Japan, a nation that dances on the edge of tectonic plates but has crafted beauty, resilience and purpose out of unpredictability. Here, nature's fury meets human will, and the result is something breathtaking, something timeless. From the snow-capped mountains of Hokkaido to the tropical beaches of Ishigaki, Japan offers not just landscapes, but experiences, not just views, but wisdom, the serenity of a bamboo forest, the silence between temple bells. The quiet nods, the humble bows, the perfectly timed train, the flavor of a single grain of rice prepared with respect. In all of this, there is a message, a whisper, a lesson. Japan teaches us that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it simply endures quietly, beautifully. You walk the streets of Kyoto and find temples that have stood for more than 1,000 years, not just standing, but breathing with life. You climb Mount Fuji not just for the view, but for the journey, for the reflection it demands. And you begin to understand the mountain is not just a volcano, it is a spiritual mirror. It calls us to rise, to push through altitude and exhaustion, to conquer not the peak but ourselves. You visit places like the Arashiyama bamboo grove, and suddenly the world softens. The towering stalks sway with the wind, and in their dance you find stillness. You feel something ancient stirring. The soul calms, the ego retreats. You realize nature has always been the teacher and Japan, the classroom. Even in the oddities, yes, even in tales of humorous samurai battles or farting contests carved in woodblock prints, we find a culture unafraid to laugh, to reflect, to be human. Samurai who lived by the code of Bushido, but also formed bonds beyond duty, relationships built on trust, loyalty, and personal truth. Monks who not only prayed but fought, and in one of the most extreme displays of spiritual discipline, chose paths of self-mummification in search of enlightenment. What kind of nation births such paradoxes? One that accepts the complexity of the human spirit, that holds reverence for life's shadows and lights. And then there's Mount Myoko, steaming with remnants of ancient eruptions, or the cherry blossoms of Takoto-jo Castle, planted by samurai who chose beauty over battle after their stronghold fell. Think about that, warriors who could have turned to violence or resentment, instead choosing to plant trees, hundreds of them, to turn a place of conflict into one of renewal. What an act of transformation! What a message to us all. Transformation, that's what Japan is. A country that rebuilds after disaster, refines after war, and blossoms after each fall. It's the whisper of the shrine at Itsukashima, rising from the sea like a dream. It's the calm of Kabera Bay, the warm mist over Jigokudoni, where monkeys soak in hot springs as if meditating. It's the fierce stillness of Hakone Shrine against the waters of Lake Ashi, where gods are said to dwell and peace feels close enough to touch. But Japan's lesson goes beyond places. It's in the people, the visionary minds who came from the quiet backwaters of Wakayama, people like Konosuke Matsushita, founder of Panasonic, and Torakusu Yamaha, who shaped sound for the world. They weren't born into noise, they came from silence, from reflection. Great things often do. When you walk through Go among the steep thatched roofs built without a single nail, you realize what happens when tradition and community matter more than convenience. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful truth Japan gives us, that there is wisdom in slowing down. We live in a world that rushes, that wants faster, bigger, louder, but Japan reminds us that subtlety is strength. That depth takes time, that patience creates beauty. Whether it's the perfection of a tea ceremony or the discipline of a single brushstroke, the culture whispers to us, do not just exist, live with intention. Every moment in Japan is layered with meaning. Every bow, every ritual, every meal served with grace, every stone in a temple garden placed with thought. And when you experience that, when you truly feel it, you begin to wonder, what if we lived like this? What if we built our lives not just for utility, but for meaning? What if we honored both the storm and the stillness? Japan is a mirror. It doesn't shout. It reflects. It asks us to look deeper, to listen harder, to breathe slower. It reminds us that grace and strength can live in the same place, that art and survival can be one and the same, that a land born of fire and shaken by the earth can still offer the gentlest peace. So I ask you, what will you take from this? What cherry trees will you plant where there was once pain? What traditions will you preserve in a world that forgets too fast? What mountains will you climb not for the summit, but for the clarity? What quiet strength will you claim? Because if Japan teaches us anything, it's this: real power doesn't always demand attention. Sometimes it walks softly, bows deeply, listens carefully, and then changes the world. What if I told you that the soft petals of cherry blossoms once sprang from the hands of warriors, that what you see today, peaceful groves, misty temples, tranquil lakes, were once battlegrounds, solemn prayers, ancient rituals, and quiet dreams? This isn't just a story about Japan. It's about something deeper, something within us all, a longing to preserve beauty, to transform struggle into peace, and to walk paths paved by resilience, reverence, and rebirth. Take Takoto Castle Ruins Park. Over 1,500 cherry trees bloom where once stood a strategic fortress seized by giants of history. Take the Shinjan Oda Nobunaga. When the castle fell in the 1800s, the samurai didn't let its memory decay into dust. No, they planted trees, hundreds of them, not out of defeat but devotion. That act, quiet and patient, turned a symbol of war into a spectacle of spring, a reminder that even from ruins, beauty can rise again. What else are we if not carriers of forgotten strength? What else can we do if not turn our broken stones into gardens? Wakayama, only an hour from Osaka, whispers history through temple bells and pine forests. It was once ruled by the Kishu Tokugawa clan, protectors of legacy, and it still holds that spirit. Walk its coastlines and you feel something old moving beside you, not loud, not boastful, but sacred. Like the Kimono Kodo trails, where pilgrims still step on earth that has been blessed by centuries of footsteps and tears. Mount Koya's temples don't shout, they welcome, they ask you to listen, and in that silence you hear your own heartbeat. You hear the quiet voice inside you saying, keep walking, you're not alone. Think of Kiyomizu Dera in Kyoto, over 200 years of standing strong, without a single nail holding its main hall together. Think of that, not one nail, only balance, craft and faith. In 1633, the third Tokugawa shogun restored it not for himself, but for the soul of a people. Today, the shrine within it, Jishu, is a place for love and hope. People walk between stones blindfolded, trusting they'll reach the other side, believing that love, destiny, and courage will guide their steps. Isn't that life? We walk blind, but we trust, and we move forward. Far south, where sky and sea kiss endlessly, lies Ishigaki, a hidden retreat in Okinawa's chain of paradise. Here, coral reefs thrive, and the white sands feel like silk underfoot. It's Japan, but it's also something more, a meeting point of Taiwanese and Japanese heritage, a cultural blend shaped by winds from many shores. It's a place that says, you don't have to be one thing, you can be everything. The waters are clear not just in color, but in truth. Nature doesn't ask us to choose between parts of ourselves. It welcomes all of it. Now, deep in the mountains, there's a village like a dream Shirakawa go. Picture steep thatched roofs, built with no nails, shaped like hands in prayer. Snow falls, golden lights flicker inside, and it's as if time has paused just for you. Generations lived here weaving silk, growing crops, sharing fire in long winters. They endured not by resisting nature, but by learning from it. What if we too lived like that, not rushing to conquer every storm, but to dance within it? And there's Itsukushima Shrine floating gracefully off Miyajima Island, where for centuries even death and birth were forbidden to protect the island's purity. Can you imagine such reverence, a place held so sacred, it could not be touched by life's messiest beginnings or ends? And yet, here it stands, a red torii gate rising from the sea, asking us not to fear the water beneath us, but to honor it. That gate is not just a structure, it is an invitation, a threshold. A reminder that entering a sacred space is not about walking through a door, but about awakening a part of yourself you may have forgotten. We move to Kabera Bay, a place of hidden islands and black pearl farming. You can't swim here, but sometimes the deepest beauty is not in touching, but in observing, in respecting the delicate balance of nature. Glass bottom boats float above coral gardens, letting you see without disturbing. It's a lesson not everything has to be conquered. Some things are best left untouched, marveled at from a distance, honored with humility. In the icy valleys of Jigokudoni, wild snow monkeys gather in hot springs, their red faces steaming with serenity. They weren't always there. Decades ago, pushed by human activity, they descended from their alpine homes and discovered warmth where no one expected it. That's adaptation, that's survival, that's grace. And still, they remain. Wild scientists study them. Tourists adore them, yet they belong only to the mountains. They teach us that nature, when left with even a sliver of peace, knows how to heal. Lake Ashi, calm and wide, rests in the crater of a sleeping volcano. On its shores stands Hakon Shrine, where a red torii gate rises from the lake's edge like a promise kept for over 1,000 years. Nearby, the volcanic valley of Oakudoni hums beneath your feet, where sulfur clouds billow from ancient vents. It's a land of extremes, peaceful waters and fiery earth, yet it holds them both. Like us, we carry serenity and fury, stillness and fire, and neither one needs to be hidden. From the towering Shoreto Pagoda, you see Mount Fuji framed by cherry blossoms. You climb nearly 400 steps to get there, your breath heavy, your heart racing, and when you reach the top, all of Japan stretches out before you, calm and eternal. That view, snow on the peak, blossoms in the air, a red pagoda beside you, it doesn't just take your breath away. It gives it back, fuller, deeper, steadier. The journey made the view, and the climb made you worthy of the moment. Hokkaido vast, quiet, raw, a land of forests, hot springs, and indigenous stories. Despite its size, it is never loud. It teaches us that scale and noise aren't the same. You can be mighty and gentle. You can stretch across the horizon and still let the wind do the talking. That's a kind of power we've forgotten, the power of presence without force. And Okinawa, Japan's Hawaii, shaped by kingdoms, storms, and song. The Ryukyu spirit still dances in its festivals, whispers in its food, and glows in the coral reefs beneath its seas. The sun shines differently there, as if blessing a people who have endured and transformed, who have taken the best of every influence and made it their own. And then there's Shiko, Ku, the smallest of the 4 main islands, but perhaps the richest in soul. Pilgrims still walk its ancient 88 temple route. Rafters still ride the roaring Yoshino River, and under starlit skies, villagers dance in festivals that feel both sacred and playful. Here, wheat grows beside citrus groves, and deep valleys echo with the laughter of those who never left. It is not forgotten land. It is remembered land, and in remembering it, we remember ourselves. So, what do all these places, these castles and cliffs, shrines and springs, forests and flames, what do they tell us? They tell us that beauty is not something we find, it's something we build. They tell us that the past is not behind us, it walks beside us. That peace is not born from silence, but from struggle. That what endures is not what shouts the loudest, but what listens the deepest. In Japan's quiet places, we learn the loudest truths. In its oldest stones, we find our youngest dreams. And in the footsteps of pilgrims, we remember what it means to keep walking even when we don't know exactly where the path leads. So let us walk forward, not just as tourists or travelers, but as seekers, as guardians, as people who still believe in wonder. Because when we stand beneath a cherry tree planted by samurai hands, when we step onto a floating shrine, when we gaze at Fuji rising beyond blossoms, we are not just witnessing Japan, we are witnessing the beauty of what it means to endure, to protect, to believe. From the snow-covered peaks of Hokkaido to the whispering bamboo forests of Arashiyama, every corner of this land tells a story not just of geography, but of the human spirit's eternal longing for balance, purpose, and peace. When you step onto the sacred paths of Fushimi Inari Shrine, where thousands of crimson gates form a corridor of devotion, you're not merely walking through a monument. You are walking through a memory carved by centuries of faith, carried on the backs of generations who believed that something higher than themselves was worth pursuing. Those gates are more than architecture. They are promises. They are prayers turned into wood and paint. And as you climb, as your breath shortens and your heart beats louder, the path teaches you what life has always tried to tell you, that growth demands effort, that beauty often lies beyond the final step, and that spirituality isn't found in grand gestures but in quiet persistence. In the tranquility of Lake Kawagachiko, Mount Fuji reflects itself on still waters, a perfect, silent mirror of majesty and grace. And isn't that the secret we so often forget? That in stillness we see most clearly. That in silence we hear what truly matters. Just like Fuji, our best selves emerge when we stop chasing and start listening. Venture north to Nisko, where winter transforms the world into a canvas of white. Here, rooftops disappear beneath blankets of snow, and the laughter of skiers echoes across the valley. But underneath the thrill lies a deeper lesson. Nature doesn't rush, yet everything gets done. The mountains do not compete, yet they rise. And in that cold silence, wrapped in snow and serenity, we are reminded that the world does not reward noise, it rewards consistency, depth, and quiet resilience. Far to the south, Okinawa sings a different song. With its turquoise waters and coral reefs, it pulses with life, warmth, and joy. Here, the culture dances in vibrant colors, a blend of Japanese roots, Chinese influence, and Ryukyuan spirit. The people do not merely live, they celebrate. They do not just exist, they harmonize. And in that harmony is a lesson for all of us, that identity is not found in isolation, but in the embrace of difference. That peace doesn't mean sameness, it means symphony. In the solemn shadows of the Hiroshima Peace Memorial, we confront one of humanity's darkest hours. The structure stands not merely as a ruin, but as a voice that says, remember, reflect, rebuild. And from that voice comes the most urgent message of all, that peace is not passive. It is a daily, deliberate choice, a courage not of the battlefield but of the heart, a decision to forgive, to unite, to hope even when the world says otherwise. Travel to the quiet charm of Kanazawa or the sacred serenity of Nikko, and you'll see how history isn't locked in museums. It walks beside you. It greets you at shrines, watches you from castle walls, whispers to you through stone steps and falling cherry blossoms. Japan does not shout its greatness, it breathes it. It breathes it through the delicate steam rising from an onsen bath in Hakone, through the rhythmic sway of cherry blossoms in Shoreito Pagoda, through the silent echo of wooden sandals against temple stone in Sensoji. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all lies in that silence. You see, in a world obsessed with acceleration, Japan teaches us the virtue of pace. It tells us that speed is not progress, that slowness is not weakness. That to truly rise not just in success, but in soul, we must ground ourselves in values deeper than ambition, because we are not built to rush endlessly, we are built to marvel, we are not made to consume blindly. We are made to connect, and just like the ancient pilgrims of Shikoku or the pearl divers of Kashikojima, we are here not merely to survive but to seek, to find, and to give back. Let this journey across Japan be more than a travelogue. Let it be a reminder that strength is not in the sword, but in the spirit, that elegance lives not in wealth, but in wisdom, and that success is not the mountain we climb, but the stillness we carry once we reach the top. So wherever you are in your journey, whether you're lost in the chaos of ambition or quietly questioning your next step, remember the lesson carved into every stone path of Kyoto and every whispering wind of Mount Hakone. You don't have to chase greatness. You just have to be still enough to let it find you. You don't have to force your place in the world. You simply have to root yourself in something real, in purpose, in principle, in peace. Because just like the cherry blossom, you were made not to last forever, but to bloom fully in your moment. And when you do, when you truly stand in the fullness of who you are, the world will pause, just to admire the view. Imagine standing in the heart of Hiroshima, where silence once echoed louder than sound. A place scorched by the unbearable force of war, reduced to ash and ruin. Yet, what rises from that devastation is not only a city, it is a symbol, a living, breathing beacon of hope. Where there was once smoke, now stands cherry blossoms. Where despair once cast shadows, children now play, laughter now fills the air, and peace is not just spoken of, it's lived. The Peace Memorial stands tall, not merely as a marker of tragedy, but as a lighthouse for humanity, urging us to never forget and to never repeat. As we move through the vibrant streets of Yokohama, Japan's second largest city, we see another kind of resilience. A quiet fishing village once overlooked, transformed into a global gateway. The waves of history brought foreign ships and with them change, challenging Japan to open its arms, to share its treasures and to learn from the world. And in that exchange, Yokohama became a mosaic of culture, of cuisine, of coexistence. It teaches us that growth doesn't mean forgetting who we are. It means expanding what we can become. Then there's Takayama, nestled high in the Japanese Alps, where time seems to whisper instead of roar. Here, wooden beams hold the memories of generations, and craftsmen shape legacy with their bare hands. In this hidden sanctuary, we are reminded that sometimes holding on to tradition isn't about resisting change. It's about anchoring ourselves so we're not lost in the current of modernity. Takayama stands still so we can remember where we came from. And then the proud spires of Matsumoto Castle pierce the sky, a fortress that stood through battles, betrayal, and the bleeding of an era. From the shadows of warlords and strategy to a peaceful modern-day city humming with art and innovation, Matsumoto's story reminds us strength isn't only about walls or weapons, it's about enduring, redefining power through creativity, resilience, and quiet dignity. In Nagoya, history breathes through skyscrapers and bullet trains. It is a city that constantly reinvents itself, rising like a phoenix from every setback. From war-ravaged ruins to the forefront of technology and design, Nagoya teaches us that progress is never a straight line. It's messy, it hurts, but it is worth it when you refuse to be defined by your scars. And then there is Kamakura, where rebellion became rebirth. Imagine the courage it took for a young warrior to defy tradition and carve out a new kind of power, far from the imperial capital, deep in the arms of the coast. Kamakura didn't just shift a political map, it shifted a mindset. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest power lies in walking a path no one has dared to take before. Further south, Matsuyama offers something gentler. A hilltop castle watches over a city bathed in poetry and steam. In its quiet haiku and ancient hot springs, Matsuyama shows us that healing is also history. That peace can be found not just in grand monuments, but in the everyday moments we often overlook. A soak, a sunrise, a simple verse that captures a lifetime. Then we arrive in Shibuya, where Tokyo pulses with the energy of the future. In one heartbeat, thousands cross an intersection together, a chaotic, electric dance of strangers sharing space for a second. It's beautiful in its imperfection, in its anonymity. Shibuya teaches us that even in the noise there is rhythm, even in the rush there is unity, and even when we feel lost in the crowd, we are still part of something greater. Now imagine Kobe, a city shaken to its knees by nature's fury. In 1995, before sunrise, the earth trembled and buildings fell, but what did not fall, what could not be broken, was the spirit of its people. They rebuilt, they remembered, and they kept their city's soul alive. And each December, as lights illuminate the streets in quiet tribute, we're reminded that light shines brightest where darkness once lingered. In Nagano, crowned by the Japanese Alps, nature speaks a language of its own. Seasons roll through like symphonies, each note a color, a scent, a shift. It's a place where warriors once fought, where trade routes buzzed with life, and now where slopes echo with the laughter of skiers. In Nagano, we learn to respect the balance, to find strength in stillness and purpose in the passing of time. Then there's Sapporo, where snow kisses the earth like a promise, a city in Japan's north that bridges wilderness and innovation. It is a place that celebrates both the chill of winter and the warmth of connection. Sapporo is a lesson in contrasts and in embracing them. As we look across these cities, Hiroshima, Yokohama, Takayama, Matsumoto, Nagoya, Kamakura, Matsuyama, Shibuya, Kobe, Nagano, Sapporo, we are not just tracing a map of Japan, we are tracing a map of the human heart. Each place holds stories of struggle and strength, of loss and love, of quiet prayers and roaring determination. And so, what can we take from this? What can we carry forward? The message is simple, yet profound. You can rise again. You can rebuild, you can be scarred and still be whole. Every city, every shrine, every street in these tales has known pain, but they've also known the miracle of healing, the beauty of rebirth, the power of perseverance. So when life breaks you, remember Hiroshima where peace bloomed from ash. When the world moves too fast, remember Takayama where silence still sings. When change feels too big, remember Yokohama where the unknown became opportunity. And when fear whispers you're not enough, remember Nagoya where every fall is followed by flight. Let these places live in you, not as destinations on a travel guide, but as metaphors, as markers on your own journey of becoming. Because like every great city, you too are built on layers of history, of hope, of heartbreak and healing. And if Japan's cities can endure all they've seen and still rise each morning with purpose and grace, then so can you, Japan, a land where resilience isn't just a trait, it's a way of life, a land that has risen from ashes again and again, not just to survive, but to shine. And in the heart of that light there stands Hiroshima, a city once silenced by an unimaginable force, now speaking louder than ever with a message of peace. Over 75 years ago, Hiroshima faced the darkest moment humanity could deliver. A single bomb flattened lives, dreams, and futures. But today, if you walk its streets, you'll hear laughter echoing through parks, see children playing where rubble once lay, and witness a community that chose hope over hatred. Hiroshima isn't a graveyard of sorrow, it is a symbol of rebirth. Every brick rebuilt, every flower planted, every voice raised for peace whispers the same truth: resilience is louder than destruction. It is a city that doesn't forget, but also one that doesn't stay broken, and that spirit doesn't live in Hiroshima alone. Just a short train ride away, Yokohama stands, a vibrant, pulsing city where tradition dances with innovation. Once a sleepy fishing village, Yokohama became Japan's gateway to the world, a place where the currents of commerce brought foreign ideas and cultures to mingle with local spirit. Its streets are alive with color, its cuisine tells stories of exchange, and its architecture nods to the past while reaching for the future. Here, history isn't hidden in museums, it breathes in every alley and marketplace. Travel further into the mountains, and you'll find Takayama, a town that feels suspended in time. There, the wooden beams still hold the scent of centuries past, and the hands that craft sake do so with the reverence of their ancestors. While modern Japan races ahead, Takayama walks with quiet dignity, guarding its traditions like sacred relics. It reminds us that speed isn't always strength, and sometimes preservation is the most radical act of all. Then there's Matsumoto, rising from the shadow of tragedy. Once marred by attack, it chose resilience instead of revenge. Its castle stands not just as a fortress of stone, but as a monument to the unbreakable human will. Its people, shaped by the pain of the past, now shape a future of strength, unity, and cultural pride. And in that pride we see the same thread. No matter how many times a city falls, what matters most is how it stands again. Like Nagoya, this is not a city that waits for history, it makes it. From war scars to industrial triumphs, Nagoya is a phoenix in constant flight, always finding new skies to soar through. Every corner of the city echoes with innovation and ancient strategy, where the legacy of Tokugawa Ieyasu still lingers, not as a relic, but as fuel for modern ambition. And in Kamakura, the roots of samurai rule still run deep. This wasn't just a shift in politics, it was a revolution of spirit. A warrior class, rising from the fringes, reshaped the destiny of a nation. It teaches us that greatness doesn't always begin in palaces, it can be born in the hearts of the underestimated. In Kamakura, rebellion was rebirth, strength was strategy, and every step in its ancient streets still beats with the pulse of change. In Matsuyama, heikas still drift in the wind like whispers from another time. This city doesn't shout to be noticed. It speaks softly, inviting reflection, serenity, and healing. Its hot springs offer warmth not just to the body but to the soul. And within its poetry and quiet elegance, we are reminded that not all battles are won with swords. Some are won with stillness. Then comes Shibuya, a thunderclap of modern life, where hundreds of thousands surge through a single crossing in organized chaos. It is Tokyo's heartbeat, fast and furious, glowing in neon and pulsing with energy. But even there, within the madness, there is unity, there is movement without collision, there is purpose in the pace. Shibuya doesn't just show the world what modern Japan looks like, it shows what it feels like, electric, alive, unstoppable. And Kobe, dear Kobe, who can speak of resilience and not utter that name, a city shaken to its knees by nature's fury, it rose with tenderness, not just in infrastructure, but in spirit, in compassion. In community, the lights of the luminary glow not for tourists, but for memory, for honoring loss by choosing life again and again. In Nagano, where mountains kiss the sky, time stretches differently. Here, the earth changes colors with each season, and the past feels close. Warlords once fought on these lands, but today peace grows where swords once clashed. Snow covers the peaks in winter, as if the heavens are preserving something sacred. Nagano reminds us that power isn't always loud. It can be still, rooted, enduring. Then Sapporo, a northern gem built by visionaries and the enduring Ainu spirit. It's more than snow and ramen. It's planning. It's culture. It's a grid of ambition surrounded by mountains, with a heart that beats with unity and pride. It proves that even in the coldest climates, warmth can thrive, and what of Tokyo, the great transformer? Once a fishing village, now a global giant, no city has rewritten its story so many times with such flair. Earthquakes, fires, wars, none could bury its brilliance. Tokyo doesn't just evolve, it leads. It teaches us that identity isn't fixed, it's forged again and again in every challenge, every innovation, every dream. In Otaru, canals once carried trade, but now they carry stories of merchants, of memories, of reinvention. The stone warehouses, once forgotten, are now filled with music and life. The city, once fading, chose revival, and in doing so, it became more than a destination. It became a promise that what is old can be made new again. Kyoto, the heartbeat of Japan's soul, untouched by war's bombs, but shaped by centuries of grace. Here, temples do not just stand, they speak of devotion, of design, of discipline. Kyoto is not a city to visit, it's a city to feel. A city to bow to, not just with your body, but with your heart. It has protected the essence of Japan with quiet power, refusing to trade dignity for speed, and Osaka where culture meets courage, a city that fed the nation and powered its economy. Where laughter bubbles through streets filled with flavors and theater, Osaka knows who it is, it knows its roots, and it dares to keep its personality in a world that often demands uniformity. These cities, each so different, yet each a mirror of Japan's eternal truth. That strength is not in avoiding struggle, but in embracing it. That beauty is not perfection, it is endurance, it is the scars that shine. The bridges rebuilt, the dances still danced, the dreams still dared. From mountaintops to city lights, from tea houses to bullet trains, Japan is not just a country. It's a symphony, a place where the past and future bow to each other, and where every step is both a memory and a possibility. So walk its paths, listen to its stories, and perhaps, if you're quiet enough, you'll hear the unspoken promise that echoes through it all. No matter what comes, we rise.